So, should paternity tests be done at all births? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, a couple of years ago, I read this article that said that 30% of men raising children were raising children that were not biologically theirs. In other words, men believe that these children are theirs, and within and without a marriage, and it comes out that the child was not biologically theirs because a woman, that perhaps girlfriend or wife, slept with some other guy and got pregnant by the other guy and passed it off on him. Now, of course, the left, they've come out in full force as always. Somebody will create some article saying it's not true, and then 20, 30 other articles are linked to that one article, and they'll flood Google with those articles, and you'd have to go 5, 10 pages in, sometimes 15 in, to get the truth. And this is what they always do. This is one of the ways that Google basically shadow bans truth out there. But anyway, now the truth of the matter is that this article stating that it was from a specific state, and I can't remember which exact state it was, but it was one state that they found out that 30% of the men raising children were not biologically there, that they believe were their biological children. Now, of course, this was only one state. One of the criticisms was against it, but I would say, how about if we do an investigation of all the state, the whole nation, all the states? Let's do a nationwide test and see if this was the case. And I'm willing to bet that's probably true all throughout the country, especially in this day and age with free love and free sex that the feminists have pushed women to do, to be open and sexual and explore your sexuality. And you telling me that all these women aren't how they're doing it, especially also given when people say that it's so much more easier for women to cheat than it is men, and that women have so much access to sex than men do. That something I read a statistic that something like 30% of men aren't having sex, as opposed to 10%, maybe 10% of women. So women, the idea of getting sex is so much easier for women, and with all this free and open sex out here, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if 35 to 40% of men were raising children that weren't theirs. Now, regardless of it, I say that DNA tests should be done at all live births, every birth. No man's name should go on a birth certificate unless tests were done. A DNA test is done. Until then, no man should be able to go on a birth certificate. No woman should be able to get any child support from any man until it has been proven that that person is the biological father. And because there's so many men out here who are paying child support for children that aren't theirs. Now, obviously, the left are going to be against this, no doubt about it, because, well, first of all, it's attacking upon quote unquote women and feminists, like any other, some of these other few selected groups are the protected. They're going to come up with all these excuses. The number one excuse that I've heard against this idea of DNA testing for every birth is the cost. Now, somehow the lefts now are concerned about cost. I never heard them be concerned about cost unless it's something that conflicts with what they want. But the truth of the matter is that this whole cost argument goes out the window, because if you do that many testing, that means that the cost for doing DNA tests are going to be so inexpensive, it's going to be fractions of a dollar. It's going to be so inexpensive, it's going to be ridiculous. If they're producing so many DNA tests, to do a DNA test for every birth, a DNA test is going to be so cheap that I'd say it's going to be pennies on the dollar. So that whole cost argument goes out of the window. After that, there are no more excuses, because I can't see why anybody will be opposed to doing the DNA testing so that men aren't paying for children that aren't theirs. And it's sad that it happened, even when it comes out after the fact, after DNA testing have showed that the man who signed the birth certificate wasn't the biological father. They still forced that man to pay child support. So that just goes to show you the tyranny that's going on. The tyranny that patriots are standing up against. But men have to stand up against this. And as I said before, one of my biggest issue with MGTOW is, why are you going your own way? Don't go your own way. If you're going to go to the government and demand rights. And if men were to stand up and say, we want this, we want paternity tests, or else, guarantee it would happen. It would happen like yesterday. But we just have to stand up and get it. But I just don't believe that, given the day and age that we live in, given the facts, regardless of that 30% is true or not, given the society that we live in, the society of free love that the feminists have given us, I think that DNA tests should be done at every birth, and no name should ever go on a birth certificate. No man's name should ever go on a birth certificate unless it's been confirmed that he's the father. And no man should have to pay for a child unless it's been confirmed that he's the father. Again, obviously people would disagree. You disagree all you want, but that's just common sense. But anyway, I would love to know what other people believe on this. Even the moderate liberal leftists out there can't disagree with me on this, because it makes sense. Only emotional people can disagree with this, because emotional people just deflect logic. Anyway, this is my 2 cents on this whole argument. DNA test for every birth. And as always, y'all, until next time.